Avshen Sanbonani, good afternoon. Msimanga here. I'm the leader of the Democratic Alliance in Gauteng. In the past few weeks, we have crisscrossed this province, going around talking to people about the effects of crime in the communities. We've been talking to the policemen and women. We have gone to police stations and saw the state of our police stations. We have actually then engaged even with business people that have told us the difficulty of conducting their business and actually then remaining profitable in the conditions that they have to find themselves working under, where their clients cannot even access their business facilities because of crimes that are happening in the surrounding areas. Just 2 weeks ago, we were in the Johannesburg CBD. We were talking to a lady who just got robbed of her belongings, and she said that has set her back in a business, and people don't even want to then come to conduct business with her because of the location where she finds herself in. But she says this never used to be, because there used to be visible policing. There used to be a fast reactive unit that would actually then be around there and ensure that crime doesn't take place in the surrounding areas of Johannesburg. But this is something that has gotten us very, very worried as Democratic Alliance here in Gauteng. And we want to provide solutions, but we understand that the solutions are not going to come by themselves. We now need to then ensure that we engage with all the stakeholders or the role players here. We need to be talking to the private sector. We need to be talking to the police. We need to be talking to the citizens. We need to then be talking also, to business in terms of how we're able to then work together to ensure that we're able to then fight the scourge of crime. And government needs to also obviously come and play its role here. But with me today, I have industry experts, if I may call them that, people that have actually been doing crime prevention and fighting against crime for a very, very long time. Sitting next to me is Gary Watkins, my apology, who is coming from Erasmia CPF. Next to Gary is Aris Reiter, who is coming from the Gauteng CPF. And next to Aris is John Jonker, who is coming from the Boshop CPF. These are the people that we are going to be engaging with today. They're going to be telling us what they're experiencing, what they're seeing on the ground. But more importantly, we're going to be talking about what are the solutions then going forward. Maybe let me start off with you, Gary. What have you been picking up on the ground as the most common crimes in the areas that you're responsible for? And what do you think are the major challenges that the police are sitting with?
So the primary crimes in Erasmia, which is peri-urban, rural, etc., would be your cable thefts. That's a significant factor. Cable theft, gate motor thefts, very little contact crime, except for possibly domestics going to and from work. And then hijackings. So hijackings is escalated on one stretch of road. This year we've had 18 attempted hijackings, or actual hijackings. So, and that's obviously a more elevated crime. And then the emergence of illegal mining, with at least 3 illegal mines in that precinct or the broader precinct. And that brings in a whole different element of criminal activity, particularly armed criminals.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's the tendency at this stage.
Sure. We'll come back to that, because I want to touch on a number of issues, especially around issues of illegal mining and hijack, because also sometimes it leads to other crimes as well. We've seen where people are kept for days and then kept somewhere for days, and their accounts are wiped clean, and police are not really able to then do much about that. But I want to talk to that a little bit later on. Eris, tell me, what's happening in Gauteng and the surrounding areas that you can talk to us about?
I think our biggest is at the moment theft of vehicle, which is the biggest worry, followed by Gauteng side. We're looking more at house burglaries and house robberies and common robberies. That is at the moment escalating on our side. That stays an issue. But theft of motor vehicles between the forums and everything that is happening, we are building a strong network across the N4 to try and curb it. And I think Jean can speak more about the theft of motor vehicles. He's got a good operation plan on the way they run things. We just adapt and assist to focus on that. On house burglaries and the house robberies, we try and build intel for SAPs from the community
Well, I know that you've also been dealing quite a lot. You've had your hands full with the N4, spiking of vehicles and all of that. And maybe it's something that we would want to then touch on a little bit later on as well. So yeah, John, what's happening in Botlek? I mean, I know that's a headache of a place. The area is huge and it's very diverse. I mean, you have your Silver Lakes, and then you go all the way to the plotlands there in the back, from agricultural to very, very urban setups. Just tell us what's happening there.
Thank you, Sally. It is a diverse community. I think we've got everything from massive informal settlements, rural areas, straight through to high-density urban areas. As Iris noted, vehicle theft for most of the urban Pretoria is a massive problem. We've seen it skyrocket to new levels. So that has been probably one of the biggest concerns. We've had excellent arrests and, as Iris noted, infrastructure rolling out to help with it, but that's probably one of the biggest in the urban areas. On the informal settlements, we have your domestic violences, but we also have rape and murder happening quite a bit there. The rural areas would be targeted for your normal farm attacks and stock theft and cable theft and that type of thing. So it's quite a diverse. We have a little bit of everything. We do well keeping it low as possible, but as you noted, 300 square kilometers with very limited resources, it can be a handful.
But then that brings me to the question, maybe any of you can then jump in here. We're talking about resources, right? I mean, when we did our police station visits, it was quite shocking that in certain instances you go to a police station, on paper they have about 20 vehicles, but operationally they have 3 vehicles. And they have hundreds of square kilometers to then cover. And you then ask, but how is it possible that you're going to have visible policing if you don't have adequate resources? I mean, when we went to the Johannesburg Central Police Station, it was an embarrassment. And I don't blame the police. I blame management that is, centralized somewhere in terms of the fixing of the vehicles, procurement and all of that. I mean, as we were there, literally outside on the gate of the police station, there was a vehicle with flat tires, no battery inside. Somebody who had opened the hood, the bonnet of that, trying to fix something there. And clearly you could see that this bus is not going anywhere, it's not going to be moving in anytime soon. And when you start asking inside, but how many vehicles do you have to patrol? Basically half of Johannesburg Central, the CBD, they had 5-6 vehicles. And you ask yourself, but how is it possible? Because you have close on 1 million people or more in that area. But I don't know, what's your take on the issues of resources?
Really,
you want to start maybe?
Yeah, so in our precinct, your shortest response time from the station to the furthest corner of the precinct would be 30 minutes. So that already...
That is the shortest.
That's the shortest. Yeah. That's if they're driving at 120 kilometers. So just your ability to respond to crimes is significantly impacted by distances alone. And then secondly, in our precinct, we have one functioning vehicle to cover the second largest precinct in Tshwane. So it's over 300 square kilometers with one police vehicle, which is not suited also for rural areas.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that's probably also replicated elsewhere.
Sure. So I don't know, John. What I know for a fact that you need to not only have call it private vehicles. You need proper elevated vehicles so that you're able to then drive on the gravel roads in the rural areas there, especially around the farms and the plots around there. How has this actually then hampered police visibility, especially in your rural farm areas? Because we talk about farm murders, we talk about farm crimes, and I always say that it goes beyond, because next to the farm sometimes you even get informal settlements, close by or actually around there, which then means that it's not an issue of only getting to the farms, it's an issue of also making this visible policing even in informal settlements, because some of them are belt way of the formal roads and all of that. So how has that affected the ability to bring crime under control?
Well, it starts with the initial problem, like you said and Gary mentioned, lack of resources. If there's one CSC complaints vehicle available, it has to cover 300 square kilometers. It's servicing hundreds of thousands of people in informal settlements. Basically, at the end of the day, the rural areas, the farming communities, will not get any visible policing. There's roads that I believe police haven't driven in 5 or 6 years. Plots that can't get visited. I know there's initiatives that want to reactivate the rural safety departments, but as I've heard some station commanders say, if a vehicle breaks, I'm taking the rural safety vehicle first. So the fact of the matter is, visible policing is hampered. If I think on a bad day, Boschkop might have one CSC vehicle and one crime prevention vehicle. But that crime prevention vehicle also has to attend all the weekly operations out of the precinct, which means we're basically stuck with one marked vehicle in the entire precinct. So as far as visibility goes, it can be up to 0 in some parts of the areas.
And I mean, that is just grounds for the criminals to just start. Because if they know that there's no resources, there's no police that are going to be around there. And perhaps this is where you guys come in, because you have now almost, you're doing what the police are supposed to be doing. And that talks to the collaboration. And I think one of the things that I would want to talk to slightly later on is the collaboration between the police and the CPF and, private security companies and, the residents, and then businesses around that as well. But one of the major challenges that we're also sitting with is crime on infrastructure. I mean, I'm sure all of you can talk about cable theft, the sale of copper, the stealing of steel poles. I've seen, and sometimes even in Kraaifontein Road at some point, I remember, on Solomon Masango is an example, you'd find that street lights, the poles are bent over, and then the lights are taken, and whatever is inside is actually then taken as well. You find that traffic lights are also then vandalized because they're stealing the equipment or whatever it is that is happening. So I mean, how is this affecting the communities that you guys are serving?
I think it is a rough point, and I just want to touch back on the resources. Another issue that I think we see as the more urban type compared is all the operations that SAPS is doing. Now, they help neighboring precincts, and they take the resources we have for our precinct out to help those neighboring precincts, leaving the precincts open. It is a cycle that goes through, but in that week, or howbeit, the crime does escalate because the visibility is lower. With the theft of infrastructure and all of that, I mean, let's face it, streetlights are the biggest issue we have overall. Darkness, crime thrives in darkness. It is what it is. The guys move around. It's harder for police, for security, for anybody. We've seen countless videos where criminals actually just hide behind a tree or shrub, and the guys go past. You can't see them. They lie down. You can't see them. It's street lights, lighting, infrastructure overall, I think, is a big issue for crime.
Yeah, sure. Can I just add to that? In a rural area with a patrol, you can see a patrol vehicle coming 2 kilometers away. So, as a preventative measure, as opposed to simply being awareness that the police are there, it's very limited. But we need a technological shift in how we deal with crime. The old days of patrolling and driving around blindly at night and guessing where suspects are needs to change. We need to use technology. We need CCTV cameras. We need community cameras out there that run 24/7, that feed information back so that your patrol groups are responsive, as opposed to simply driving around. And in our suburb, we're busy rolling that out, and we're hopefully rolling it out in Manani.
Okay.
So that fundamentally changes things, and you start getting images of criminals, which you don't have in the past. So we have footage of gangs of 5, armed gangs, which we do hand over to the police, but that is not pursued. So sometimes you get facial images. You expect that with facial images on cameras that there'll be a person of interest poster. That doesn't take place either. So yes, it's resources, but it's also the responsiveness of police to information that's being provided to them. That information is there, and increasingly so with CCTV. With cable thefts and things like that now, the latest tactic around informal settlements, you simply set the polar light. So you don't try and disconnect it, you set the polar light. You collapse the entire Eskom infrastructure in our case, and you go back 2 days later and you take the cables. So, and that we're picking up on camera. So technology we need to shift the ballgame. We need new technology to deal with that. The old ways of policing doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but I want to touch back on that, Gary, because as much as I feel and I agree that we need to then move towards technological advancement in how we deal with these things. But if we don't have the basics right, you can introduce all the technology that you want, it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Part of the challenge that we were sitting with, I mean, I remember we visited quite a number of police stations, one of them being Acacia police station, right? And we went to Haranko, I think they fixed it lately. But there are police stations that today still don't have basic telephone. So you don't have a telephone number connected to that particular police station, right? If you don't know the cell phone number of a sergeant or a constable in there, then you cannot be able to then get access to that particular police station. So would you agree with me that as much as we want to then move, and we should be moving in the technological space, but we need to make sure that the basics are completely then covered, i.e. we need to make sure that the police will be able to then respond. So it's no use to then say we have a drone that is going all over and you can see where the criminals are, because if you have thermal imaging, you can actually then see that these are people that are busy digging there in the middle of the night. They don't have any business being there. But once that information is reported to the police, nobody is able to then show up because there is no vehicle. So I agree then that we need to then ensure that as we want to then move in that space, we need to then ensure that the basics are then covered.
Without question.
I agree.
I think you get down to the point very clearly. It doesn't help you've got a camera, but nobody to respond to the camera. It doesn't help you've got technology. Once again, there are a lot of good policemen that want to catch criminals, that wants to create a safe community. But if he's stuck in the police station without a vehicle, good luck for that. So yes, if we don't get the basics right first, the manpower, the basic resources, technology will be wasted. But if we can solve that problem and we add technology, it'll be a very difficult time for criminals, and we've seen it. You've mentioned thermal drones that led to great successes on the spikers. You've got your LPR cameras running chaos with car thieves because we're catching them left, right, and centre. But without a policeman to do the actual arrest, it all becomes naught.
Well, but maybe let's talk to that, because I know, for instance, that you guys have had massive success around issues of curbing down cable theft in your area. You have had massive success on the spiking on the N4. You assisted the police in driving criminals out, and you're actually reducing them. What is the importance of having this partnership between the CPF and the police and the private security companies and businesses? What is the importance of it?
Well, you're 100% right, because even the police realize there's a cooperative agreement between different parties. They don't have the resources, they don't have the technology, they don't have the manpower. When they get to a undocumented foreign national, they don't have the expertise of a home affairs official helping them. And they realize they need that. Private security has played a huge role. We know they have more vehicles, we know they are better trained, we know they have more firearms, etc., etc. And they fill the void. If it's not for private security, I really think there would be a horrible world here in South Africa just filled with crime permanently. So private security is crucial. But private security can also only do what they are allowed to do, and secondly, they have to serve their clients first. They're not volunteer organizations. That's where different structures like NGOs, like Security Forum, Alpha Security Forum, Old East Security Forum, they can come in and fill the void to provide resources and additional support for those structures. And I think that's where the successes come when everybody takes hands.
Yeah.
In the end, we are getting the intelligence, like Gary mentioned. We are getting the camera footage, the vehicle images, the facial recognition. We're getting all of that. But we need to ensure there's a partnership to get that through the correct channels and that somebody does it with that. And I do think some parts of the police service is reaching out and building these relationships. Unfortunately, not all.
But what do you think then is lacking in terms of that breach between yourselves as members of the CPF and members within the private security, companies or the sector, and what is happening with, let's call it, the government or the officials and the police? Because I want to look at it holistically. I don't want to then say just the police, because the police don't make the laws. The laws are made somewhere else. So there's issues around, you cannot make an arrest, as an example, because then it is regarded as kidnapping, as if you are a private citizen or even part of a private company, you would then be regarded as, effecting an unlawful arrest, and then it's regarded as a kidnapping. How do you think that we now need to then look into that and then be able to then have a much more effective partnership that brings everybody, that everybody is able to then effectively play their role and fight this fight against crime?
I think education is a huge factor for the community itself. The people can arrest somebody if they see it happening themselves. Everybody's got that mandate, they can do it. Lawfully and justifully, not using, obviously, reasonable force and all of those laws. But yeah, they need the education. They need to know what they can do, what they can't do. I think we go into a place everybody is too scared to do anything or say anything because they don't want to implicate themselves from the community side. We're trying to convince them that we can work together alongside security with SAPS, TMPD, the whole 9 yards. Everybody, working together, educating. Every basic aspect is the biggest problem, and it takes a lot of time. You can say things over and over and over again. It just doesn't hit home to the majority of people.
Yeah.
I think just going back to your point, the private security is probably the biggest arrester of suspects, beyond question.
Yeah.
But then there's a disconnect between the policing system and the criminal justice system. So the suspect is processed through the police station, but just as an illustration, in the last 6 months, 4 or 5 cable thieves were released. They were apprehended by private security, processed, and through the criminal justice system, that failed us as residents. So they were actually released and they're back on the street. So I think there's that disconnect as well. It's not only the police's problem, it's the frustration police have with
100%.
criminal justice system. Yeah.
I agree. If I can just say, I've got an ongoing court case with certain suspects caught with home-breaking tools, and the one suspect skipped bail, so he should have a warrant of arrest out for him. He was apprehended again. SAPS got hold of him, and there was no warrant of arrest, even though he skipped bail on an ongoing court. So I agree 100%. The justice system is what's letting the majority down at the moment as well.
But I want to take this a step further, because we now need to look at tightening up certain rules and making sure that our prosecution work as it's supposed to be working, right? And we'll have a conversation now around that. But I want to talk about the effectiveness of the police and the trust or the lack thereof that the public now has, for the police. Because sometimes, and now the numbers are speaking for themselves, people don't report crimes because they're expecting something to happen. They're reporting because now I have an insurance that I now need to then get a case number, therefore I need to then make a claim. But the police haven't really, and I'm using this thing more of a general statement, and it's a dangerous thing, I shouldn't. I've seen men and women who are dedicated and who are not corrupt and not corruptible. But we have seen and we have heard stories of police that themselves have really let the whole men in blue, or the men and women in blue, down, because they are themselves the bottom pit, of the scums that really, work with the criminals, allow the criminals to do whatever they're doing, and in fact, in certain instances, are actually criminals themselves. And maybe, Gary, you want to talk to us about that?
Yes. So there's a complete lack of trust, certainly amongst our residents and policing, because they basically see what's happening. So whether the police vehicle is Erasmus or a Believer Note they don't make that distinction. They just see a police vehicle or a man in uniform. Even with TMPD. So they regard that as the police. So when in an informal settlement, for example, about 2 months ago, the police raid a illegal shebeen and then simply move the stock to another shebeen. That just completely deteriorates the trust. So obviously, when people hear about these incidents, and the other is the endless visits to scrapyards by the police, 5 to 6 times a day, Mondays to Fridays.
Visiting the same scrapyard.
Same scrapyard.
So what are they doing in that scrapyard?
Repeatedly.
While we need them to be visible on the street.
We can speculate what they were doing there, but it does beg the question, with every suspect caught with copper, what happens to the copper? So, and also when there's a scene, burglary, they do visit the next day, especially with vacant properties, and more seems to disappear. So one can speculate as to what takes place. However, what is very unusual is for the same police vehicle to visit the same scrapyard 6 times a day. There's something wrong there. Now that is being seen by residents because it's the main access route. So the confidence of residents in policing is deteriorating, and then also just reporting crimes. I mean, you do get asked a question if you report a trespass or a burglary. Is this for insurance purposes? So if it's for insurance purposes, they're not going to do the detective work. They will close the file because you have a case number. So those basics are not in place.
But it takes me back to the point that I spoke about the basics. I visited Taiwan at some point, and when we were there, I promise you, I could tell you, because I walked into the command center, they literally knew where each and every vehicle is of the police. They knew where the bike is, where this vehicle is, where that vehicle is. So they could tell you around the whole town where each and every vehicle is and which vehicle will need to then respond to what. I don't think that, because they don't even have two-way radios in the police vehicles now. So how would they even know where the vehicles are? And for me, this talks to the point that I was raising earlier on, to then say, if you're not able to then cover the basics, you're not going to be able to then effectively then introduce, new ways of fighting them crime. Because if you are saying there's a vehicle that is on the same day going into one particular scrapyard 6 times, surely, if somebody's monitoring that, should see that there is some irregular, movement of this vehicle, then it should be raising alarm bells then.
They should be, and that's certainly the job of your station commander. All those logistic reports, the tracking reports are in the vehicles. So it's very easy to track exactly where a vehicle is. There's some other councillors in Whiteplas that have seen SAPs going into a scrapyard and closing the doors behind them. That happens quite frequently. So is revenue collection from illegal shebeens. So the rumour is that it's 20 Rand a day to run a shebeen, for example. So, and that you'll get from the informal settlements, that information, and they're quite open about it. But I also think that we need to extend, and I think Western Cape have done this, to incorporate TMPD in our policing. Monitoring traffic and traffic fines, and that's wonderful.
No, it's not. It's not, because now in Joburg literally on my way here, I was stopped by the police on Willem Nico. Said to them, oh, so this is part of the 7,000 that you now have to then stop everybody. And now they're stopping, middle to high-end vehicles, because they are saying they're guaranteed they're going to get money out of these people. And then for me, it's not what the jobs of the police is supposed to be. Right? Yes, if you are speeding or if you're acting in an unlawful manner on the road, obviously then there must be repercussions, but it should not be at the expense of the real work that is supposed to be done by the police.
Yeah. So the previous administration of Shwani was prepared to assign a TMPD officer to each police station or a satellite police station. And that makes perfect sense because that can cover your road traffic offences, your hijackings, your blue light patrols, your illegal cops, etc. So we need to incorporate them in this solution. They're not visible in the suburbs. They're on the highways, and there's also a disconnect between TMPD and the national highways. So you would know from N4.
Yes, N4, yeah.
We have a spiking now on the N14. That's national patrol. That's not TMPD. So there's and SAPS very rarely will enter that area. So there's the disconnect that's happening during the different law enforcement agencies that also has to collapse if we're going to solve this.
Can I start bringing it maybe to some kind of solutions now, points? What do you think, and taking from what you just said, what do you think needs to then happen in terms of having an integrated security system? And I'm saying integrated security system taking into account the police, taking the TMPD, Joburg Metro Police, Ekurhuleni Metro Police, and the regional police, or the provincial and the national guys, the CPF, the private security companies, and businesses that want to then say, look, we want to also play our part. What do you think should happen there? What should really be the ideal situation? Who should be around the table? What should be said? And, how do we then come up with a solution from there?
Do you want me to take it?
You take
Okay. I mentioned a little bit earlier security forums, so a little bit a new concept, but you've got your CPF sitting there, you've got your private security, you've got your businesses, you've got your police, CMPD, everybody taking hands and doing it together. You need the businesses. All that technology costs money, unfortunately. Businesses lose a lot of money, lose clients because they don't want to park there because their car's going to get stolen. So businesses are happy to support the fight against crime. There's great initiatives like Business Against Crime, etc. These security forums is a way for the community to take ownership of their environment. They get to tell directly to whether it's the metro, the private security, what are the issues, and it brings everybody together under one platform where they can work together. It's NGOs, so they can get the proper funds in to assist where they can. They're not allowed to, but they might fix a tire of a police car or a brake light or something, and they keep the law enforcement happening. They become important eyes and ears. I know the E2 project has been very successful, but they become the eyes and ears for the police. They are the ones that have all the informants. They are the ones that gather all the intelligence. By bringing everybody together under such structures, the community can be in charge and ensure they are safe.
Can I? Sorry.
And taking it a step further, as John is our neighbouring precinct with Lake Security Forum, us as forums are starting to collaborate with each other. And that I think is the key thing. We're starting to share intel, work together, plan operations with SAPS, TMPD, and all the forces that there are. And I think that is making a big difference. Is everybody working in their own area, but on the top ends we're sharing information to each other.
Yeah, I think collapsing boundaries. Criminals don't respect precincts or boundaries. But I think also just to add on what you're saying in terms of the collaboration, we need to get, if we take the illustration of shebeens and scrapyards, invariably that's a breach of bylaws. So we need the councils to take action against these scrapyards and shebeens in it and fine and penalise and take them out. A lot of the scrapyards and the knock shops and shebeens that exist are in breach of city bylaws.
Right.
So we anticipate in terms of this broader approach and collaboration to get the city councillors in the various departments to actually take action and shut these places down. So it needs a holistic solution, which is what you're referring to.
So I agree with you, because also part of the challenge that we're sitting with is also not only the shebeens, but you find that the scrapyards themselves, everybody can open a scrapyard anywhere, just anyhow, right? And you find that even in a residential area, there are people busy knocking, grinding, cutting, in the middle of the night while people are trying to sleep. And in certain instances, we have seen where even municipal copper finds its way into that, because that is the nearest chop shop or the nearest scrapyard that is there. But you find that, there is no bylaw enforcement whatsoever to then say, do you even have a right to be operating as a second metal dealership in a particular area? And you find that is the challenge. But you're raising a number of important things that I think we're going to need to look at going forward. In that, we need to then look at the police at a ground level, the community. How do they feel in terms of giving information and being able to then feel confident that once information is given to the police or to the security personnel, there is something that is going to be done, and they are not themselves going to be victims at the end of the day. There's the issue about the private security companies, the police, the CPF, also working together, and actually even businesses, because some of the businesses do have cameras all over, and they're able to then collaborate, and maybe can then collaborate and then say, how do we then ensure that we're able to then connect with the police? But there's been also an element from the police at a municipal level, metro police in these instances, where we then say, what is the bylaw enforcement? Because the metro police actually, their core mandate is actually to then do bylaw enforcement, right? How do we then ensure that there is bylaw enforcement? How do we then ensure that we're able to then multiply what the police are doing and also collaborate with what the private sector is actually then trying to do? But also to then ensure that the police themselves come in and do what needs to be done in terms of, doing police work. Doing visible patrolling, because you deter criminals if you are known to be in the area almost all the time. We need to then look into making sure that there's more policemen and women. I mean, we have 144 police stations in Gauteng, and to hear that we have about a 36% vacancy rate, well, depending on where you go, 36 to 52% vacancy rate of police, then it doesn't really, put, the level of trust in communities to then say there will be, visible policing, there will be work that will be done. And I guess this is where you guys step in and to then say, well, wherever there is a lack, we'll be coming in. But your hands are also now tied, because there's certain things that you cannot do, that you would want to then do. Maybe let's have a quick chat about that as well.
Certain things we're not allowed to do. So part of the role of the CPF is to give oversight of SAPs. So we collect a lot of data in terms of response times, complaints from residents, and we hand that to SAPs. We expect that should be actioned, not simply ignored. In our particular instance, our CPF was shut for 6 months by district. We were allowed to function again 2 months ago for various reasons. But we expect our police stations to be resourced. We expect we've been asking for vacancies at that particular precinct for 1.5 years, which we still don't have. So we have no idea whether they're under or overstaffed. So it's a multitask effort that we need to pursue. I don't know if that really answers your question. Yeah.
We're pretty blessed at the moment. We are obviously more, I think, community oriented. We're trying to push the community side, and we've got a station commander that is fully behind the passion for the community. So we do have obviously issues. There are a lot. I think there isn't a police station without any issues. I'm just glad ours isn't as bad as some. But yes, I think it does come. I think the station commander is where the key lies in that, to bring that together. About what we can and can't do, yes, we would love to do more. I think that then, if that had to come to power or play, we would have to be policed as well. Yeah, and it's just an ongoing cycle, rolling mass. But yeah, I mean, if everybody understands the common laws, the way the law operates, there is quite a lot you can do. But don't try and go against SAPs or against anybody. You got to do it taking hands with them. That is the biggest fight.
Sure.
It's an excellent question, asking what if we could have a little bit more power. That is very true, because most of the time the CPF will be on scene half an hour to an hour before SAPS. Okay. Iris raises a valid point. We praised private security just now for the efforts they do, but we do know there's private security that take advantage of the system, the fact that they can carry large firearms. Now, the same problem can be created if you give too much power to CPF members. But I do think there's space to investigate, if you look at peace officer status, to have limited, directly mandated additional powers. It will help. Because in the end, CPF will always be first. They'll always have the information first. They'll always have a better relationship because they get to spend time with the community they serve. So investigating something like peace officer status, I think that's definitely something that should be investigated.
Well, there you have it, folks. We now need to ensure that we move together towards a solution. You've heard it from the experts, the people that have worked on the ground, that continuously work on the ground, the people that have their ears on the ground in terms of what the communities are saying. They know what is happening on the ground. We now need to then move towards ensuring that we have a coordinated effort in terms of fighting crime and preventing crime in our communities. We can actually then win this war. If the police, if the CPFs that we do have, if the private security companies, if members of the community and government at large really come around the table and sit down and say, can we really have a conversation about how do we fight, the issues of crime, and how do we work together? Whether you need to then bring in Home Affairs, whether you need to then bring in the TMPD, the JMPD, whether you need to the EMPD, we need to have a sit and talk about how do we then collaborate and make sure that we're able to then multiply the forces that we do have there. There are men and women that are willing to do the job. We just need to come around the table and be able to then say, what are the shortcomings and how do we then deal with it? And we can actually win this war. We can win this war against criminals. We can win this war against poverty, because business will flow into areas where they feel much more safer, where they feel that they can invest because there is safety of their equipment and their personnel. People will actually then invest in more properties, which will improve lives of those that are around them and everybody else. It will improve everything around us. Better rates and taxes collection from municipalities. Therefore, it makes sense that all of us must be worried about what is happening. There are people that are sitting there that should be in jobs right now, but they cannot be because they cannot be employed because there's criminal activities that is happening around there. Factories that are closing down because infrastructure has been stolen and then damaged. Kids that are being raped on a daily basis. People that have been hijacked. People that have been kidnapped for ransom. And we now need to then say, how do we ensure that we play our part? I'm Msimanga. I've been chilling here with Gary, with John, with Ari, who have given their insights in terms of what needs to be done. We're looking forward to your comments, and we're looking forward to you participating in the efforts to making sure that we are able to then fight crime and win it here in Gauteng and for the rest of South Africa. Good evening.